All right, guys. Michael Barry Fife. This guy would have to be one of the most stand-up inmates in Australia, period. His good deeds include breaking the legs of an inmate that threatened a woman and child and also threatened to stab him, right? He broke his legs. He also almost killed a notorious rapist. And his third good deed was, of course, the brutal murder of a convicted pedophile and former police officer. All right, so he's got 3 good deeds to his name. He's locked in isolation for the last 27 years. Now, initially I was going to read out his book, or what he's made of a book so far. It's 12 pages long. That's what, Aaron Danieli said, but what's happened is someone else that's sort of a gatekeeper, and I guess, how would I say this? She's someone that's looking out for Michael's well-being, and she's basically said that she would like me to read his book and put it in my own words. That way she can also hold his book, because it's very dear. It's took 3 times of it getting sent out of the jail in order for her to even receive it, because the screws kept confiscating it and all that shit. So they want to hold on to that for potentially, maybe selling it to the media or doing something more with it to better Michael's position if possible. So yeah, I think that's better as well. And it makes more sense. It is better to do it that way, because this is it's a huge story, this guy's story. Imagine if you could get his book out. It would be worth money, and it would be worth trying to get him a lawyer at some point, which, by the way, I know I've got a fair few lawyers on this channel. I know of at least 2 that I'm in contact with. And my thing is, if any of you guys can come on the channel, I know one of you is already coming on, but what I'm asking is if you want to come on to speak about this, even if, the Asian lawyer that I speak to as well wants to come on and blur his voice, like we could distort your voice or something so that you could talk about what the options and remedies might be for this guy, if any, because he's been in solitary for 27 years and all of his crimes are good. They're all stand-up. It's all for bashing just putrid cunts. He hasn't actually done anything that the public would have anything to say about. The public would champion him. Should be given a medal. But he's in solitary, treated like an animal. It's, when you hear his story, that's why I've written my points down and I'm about to paraphrase it. You'll understand what I mean. He's had a terrible life, and his violent actions are obviously invoked from the trauma of his childhood, because the people that he lashed out against were the same sort of individuals that perpetrated the same sort of things onto him when he was a child. And that is the very reason rapists and pedophiles are so reviled in jail, because jail is full of traumatized people who were abused as children. So it follows that they're going to be the most reviled sort of criminals in jail, because they're the very reason for all the trauma. You get it? Anyway, so the lawyer thing stands. It also stands for news media. Anyone that is in the comments that has a voice or a platform that wants to put this out needs to be put out in the right way. That's what, the gatekeeper and basically the person taking care of Michael's intellectual property, that's what she's concerned with. Can this be presented in the right way? We need to find the media that can present it in the right way and not just put some stupid headlines like depraved killer wants out of his cage or some bullshit. He's not a depraved killer. He's killed pedophiles and bashed rapists. He's an outstanding killer as far as I'm concerned. Anyway, also a GoFundMe. Someone mentioned it on the last one. Yes, that's in the talks as well, but that's for her as well, because she's doing all that stuff. If she does hear this one, probably if we could get that done soon, that'd be good, because it would help to put him linked on all these videos, that especially if he comes and talks for himself, you know, he has the potential to really go viral. Just looking here if there's anything else. Oh yeah, writing to him. Writing to him, yes, that's an option too. Someone asked me that on the last one. But my first thought was consider the fact that he's in solitary. You know, so this guy spent 27 years in solitary. So if you're going to write to him, I would ask that anyone have a good think about it first and make sure you're committed to actually, you know, creating a long-term pen pal, because you got to think, you know, this is his lifeline. He's in solitary, like, and then you stop writing to him because, you know, you've got your daily. It's not like outside. You don't text someone back. It doesn't matter. You just flick them if you don't want them. You know, this guy's in solitary, so any contact with people is like a really big deal, you know. And then you just discard him because you got a little bit busy. You know, it's not cool, man. You got to really think it through and make sure you're ready to make a pen pal friend, because he's in need of proper social contactors more than anyone else. This is the guy. If anyone needs social contact, it's this guy. So make sure you're serious about it first. But yes, I will put his contact details in the description. All right, but don't fuck around. Don't be an idiot. All right, now I'm going to start to read his life, all right? It's paraphrased because, like I said, they're keeping the book for better uses. He was born in Tassie and, you know, growing up between the age of about 10 and 13, his dad was a drunk, right? His dad was a drunk and a very violent man who never really said much, but him and his sister were both abused and raped as children by their father, right? And yeah, absolutely horrible. It was mostly his sister, from what I can understand, that was their dad's sex toy, as he put it. But when his sister wasn't available for whatever reason, he was, you know, raped. So that's, you know, that was hard for me to read. A lot of his story's hard to read. So he's living with his dad and is suffering all this abuse at the hands of his father at a young age when he's not even mentally developed. And then one day, you know, his mum came back to extort his dad. And it's not exactly clear, but, you know, she ended up running over him. And, yeah, the part that's not exactly clear is I believe she killed him during running over him. And it's just confusing to me, like, how come his mum wasn't in jail? It's just, it seemed to me that, his mum killed his dad, but it could have just been the way I read it. Anyway, next thing you know, he's with his mum. His mum kicks his sister out to the streets, forces her to fend for herself. And not long after that, he was taken down to the local magistrate's court. And, you know, via a lawyer, his mum had him declared ward of the state, which it seems like, that seems like an old thing that used to be available back then. I've heard a few people, I think Chopper Reed was also declared ward of the state, or, you know, some young dudes from that sort of era that turned out to be really, really prolific criminals, probably due to the systematic abuse that they suffered in the boys' homes back then. It was reported to be insane. So he's taken to a boys' home. You know, he hasn't actually done anything wrong. His mum just doesn't want him. After he's been abused and raped by his dad, then his mum took him back over, killed his dad. Now he's just chucked in a boys' home, discarded the sisters out on the street after being raped from the dad as well. So he's trying to escape from the boys' home. He escapes from there a couple times, and one of the times he escaped, his most successful escape, he went back to his mum's. But his mum calls the cops, has him taken back because, you know, she doesn't want him anyway, and so he's taken back, and for his transgressions, he is raped and abused and bashed and everything by the screws. Right, this is known to have happened back then. It's not, you know, it's no surprise. No one will question this because there was even a royal commission into it, and a lot of the people from back then ended up getting payouts. But this guy wasn't one of them. He's never gone for a payout because he's not motivated by money. All right, so you know, he's done his time and shit like that, and then at a certain point he's gone to get released. Well, he did get released into the care of a foster family. And he didn't really vibe with them. It didn't feel him. It wasn't home for him. You get me? So he's out of control around there too, and he's getting into mischief, and so it's not working. He flees Tassie and goes to the mainland, goes to Melbourne, and then he doesn't really fit in there either. So he's just hopped around a little bit. He's gone to Western Australia, and then he went to Adelaide and met a girl there, right? Fell in love. And they went hitchhiking around to Darwin and Mount Isa and different places. And let me just quickly check my notes. I'm not sure if he's the one that... Yeah, she was the one that he married and had a kid with, but they weren't right for each other. You know, like they had a kid together, got married, but didn't last that long. And, you know, she cheated on him he got locked back up for a little short spell, and she cheated on him, had kids with someone else, and, you know, and invariably she turned out to be a prostitute. So then at a certain point, you know, I'm just looking, sorry again. Yeah, all right. So he's in there, and he gets done for drink driving occasioning death at a certain point, right? And so he gets, like, you know, a couple years. And while he's in there, he nearly killed someone who threatened a woman and child. But he gets out, goes back on home detention, and, you know, he's doing good. This is a good time of his life. He's got a house, he's got a car, he's saving for a motorbike. He's on the right track. He's got a woman, right? And the way he says it is, you know, someone made up a fictitious charge against him when he was on, like, the equivalent of parole. You know what I mean? And so they've had him brought back to jail because the reason ended up being they made this fictitious charge. It was a convicted sex offender who made this charge up against him for the reason that he'd be brought back in, and see, Michael was this guy's neighbor. And so he wanted, and the woman had, let me start again. Michael was neighbors with this sex offender's missus, right? And the missus had cut all contact with the pedophile once she found out that he was a pet or sex offender, once she found out he was a sex offender. So he had Michael brought back to jail on a fictitious charge so he could find out what's going on with that woman, right? And he let Michael know as much. He said to him in the yard, like, you know, he wanted to know how his missus was. That's the whole reason he made up the charge. I mean, jail must have been different back then. You'd get chopped instantly if you'd done some bullshit like that these days. But, you know, this was a long time ago. Who knows what's the politics back then and everything, right? You get fucking smashed if you did that these days. But, you know, because it's ratting. One way or the other. It doesn't matter if it's true or not. You made up something that got me brought to jail. You get chopped instantly. But Michael thought, I'm going to get back out. I'm going to beat this. I'm going to be out soon. And was telling this guy, fuck off. Leave me alone. Just fuck off, you grub, you know? And the guy was just kept at it and kept at him and went on for days. And, you know, eventually he was putting him on show, and to the point where it reached breaking point where the guy, there was rumors swirling that this guy had a shiv and was going to attack Michael, right? So Michael bashed him and broke his legs, basically, right? And then, you know, I think he got a few more years for that, and from there on he was in a negative feedback loop, and, you know, then he ended up bashing and nearly killing a rapist, a notorious rapist over there. And then finally, I mean, then he got 11 more years, so it just kept getting worse. Like he had 5 years, right? Then he breaks this cunt's legs, then he gets some more years, right? Then he fucking damn near kills this rapist, gets 11 years, and then he finally ends up getting the longest sentence ever handed down for a single murder in South Australia's history by killing a pedophile and former police officer, right? So all these crimes is all against putrid cunts. He puts their name in here, but I'm not going to put all their names there because leave it for his book, right? Puts all their names in. So it's official. It's not, none of this shit's made up. It's in the court documents. He's fucking official, you know? Yeah, so his good deeds, like I said, they're threefold. He's broke the legs of a person that's threatened to harm a woman and child and shiv him, almost killed a notorious rapist, and he's murdered a pedophile and former police officer. And for his acts of, upstanding citizenry, I guess you could say, he has been put in solitary confinement for the past 27 years. So we need to get behind a guy like this. And just yesterday, Aaron was telling me that, they know something's going on because, the woman's been in to visit him. He hasn't had a woman visitor forever, basically, I don't think he had one for 15 years or something, right? And he hasn't seen a child, I think they said, for 30 years. So this woman went with her kid and visited him, and it was a moment because, he hadn't seen a child for 30 years. And the other day, yesterday, Aaron's call got cut. He was in the middle of a call to Michael, and the call got cut off, right? The screws are hanging it up, obviously. They know they're monitoring this guy like a motherfucker, and they're hearing the calls and probably monitoring what's going on. It won't be long before they see this shit on YouTube too. There'll be probably, a chance that they'll deny his request to put me on his call list, because all this shit going on now, they want to put someone new on the call list. I'm sure my calls with him are going to be highly monitored. I'm a bit nervous that I gave my real name to go on there, because the next thing you know, probably the fixated persons unit's going to be at my house or some bullshit. This shit is corrupt, man. This shit is corrupt. And it's a little bit nervous for me to even involve in this, but I have to because with the name Nobail Just Jail, like I said to Aaron, that's a big name to take on. And when you do, you kind of owe it to the people really living this life every single day. It might be entertainment for you and, all these people out there entertained by it, but there's people really suffering on a level that's unknown to any other Australian. These guys, solitary confinement, there's no one suffering worse than that, unless you're in, complete crippling and debilitating pain every second of every day. You suffer with, cluster headaches or, spinal injuries that, cripple you every single day. The pain is just debilitating. Who else is suffering more than someone in lockdown? They're suffering as much as can be. So I owe it to guys like this to live up to my name and make sure I'm representing them, right? Because you can't have a name Nobail Just Jail if you're just going to shit on the people that are really living the Nobail Just Jail life. So yep, I'm hoping I'm on his call list soon, so we can hear directly from him, because as you see, just from my video call with the brother yesterday, that just told a bit, Curry brother that just told a bit of his story. I mean, people really want to hear from ex-inmates, and especially one like this. This guy is, to hear from him, this shit's never been done in Australian history. Where can you find a call of someone as notorious as him? Anywhere. You can't. There's no calls out there like this. So I'm skeptical it's going to be allowed to go ahead, and if it does, I think it'll be shut down very fast. But I'll keep banging on about it here, because if it does get shut down, that just goes to show corruption. Because why doesn't he he's not doing anything wrong. He's been in solitary for the last 27 years. How could he even offend? And then he can't even voice his opinion. His opinion can't even be heard on YouTube. Not even opinion. Can his voice even be heard? Let's say that we don't give no controversial takes. He just wants to simply question why it is that he's been in solitary for this long. Is he not allowed to do that? Is there allowed to be no public light shined on his case? That's the thing about correctives. It operates in the dark. That's why corruption is so rampant. Because unlike, say, the police force, it is subject to public scrutiny. Hospitals, they're on the outside. They're subject to public scrutiny. But correctives, who's going to complain? Inmates. And inmates' words are no good according to the justice system, right? So who's going to complain? Inmate. They're powerless, right? For example, this guy complains, he rings up whoever, ombudsman, whoever he can ring. He's in a powerless position because they can just hang up and ignore his calls. And what's anyone going to do? There's no one can come to the office and kick up a stink and make YouTube videos or do anything because he's powerless from his cell. You get me? So that's why we have to really make a scene about this. And even if they block his calls or whatever, we have to make more of a scene because, you know, why should his calls and privileges be taken away? I've heard stories like, all right, you know, the chick told me, you know, he won't get desserts and it'll be just all sorts of things they'll do to him. Like I think she said, I don't want to get it wrong, but she said like they won't give him his clothes or I can't exactly remember like, but basically his privilege, his basic human rights are stripped from him anytime he does anything, right? Like his call got cut off yesterday. I am skeptical his calls are even going to keep going ahead, right? They're more optimistic than I am. I really think they're going to fuck him up hard. I don't think I'll be allowed to go on his call list. And if I do, I have a bad feeling that, I mean, I'm paranoid as fuck, probably, right? But I have a bad feeling that, see, I'm being very careful here, right? So that it can't be stated that I am inciting anything, right? My intentions are very clear by my YouTube videos. I've got lawyers here too, so they're overseeing this too. So if any corruption takes place, it will be known by legals as well. But I think the cops or fixated persons unit is gonna, you know, I have a bad feeling I'll be targeted or something's gonna go wrong. I feel it. I can feel it in my bones, right? So I let it be known, man, like, yeah, I think when you push the envelope with a case like this, you know, the other guys, you know, especially Aaron, he's a little bit optimistic and I guess he feels that at this point, Michael doesn't have anything to lose and, you know, that is a valid point, but also, I mean, he still could be reduced. The little that he does have could be taken away. It's horrible, man. Like, it's so fucked up. The little that he has, what does he even have? Phone calls and desserts. Putrid desserts anyway, probably. Not like desserts me and you think. Jail dessert, like a fucking cupcake or something. They're going to take that away from him. You know, it's horrible. After all he's been through, the rapes and abuse and put in foster homes and care, like care where he was raped and all this bullshit as a kid. That is the reason why he lashed out and, like, look at his offending, right? It's all on putrid cunts because that is what was put onto him as a kid. And so he is rebelling against his demons, right? The reason for his trauma. All that's coming flooding back. Like I said to you guys, when I attacked, you know, various people in my life, but when I would, it'd be because I reach breaking point and snap and don't see any. It's always a traumatic event that's going to trigger it, right? The suicides in my family, all that shit. And people testing me at the wrong times. Same thing here, right? His childhood trauma has come back and haunted him. Been haunting him his whole life. And he's been triggered by them. And he's just snapped, lost the plot and gave them what they deserve. And for that, he's thrown his life away. Avenging the little kids, throwing his life away. And yeah, so that's what this is about. Trying to bring awareness to this guy's case. Cheers, guys.